What's good, guys? So I got a ban list video for you guys, and this is going to be about 5 cards that I don't think is going to change when the ban list comes around in a few weeks, probably by the end of this month, which is June. But let's get right onto it. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think. Are these changes going to happen or not? In my opinion, I don't think these changes are going to happen, and that isn't because I don't want them to, because you guys see the first card right here. I obviously want these changes, but the way Konami works, the way that they've worked in the past, I don't think these changes are going to happen. So I don't want people to get their hopes up. I don't want myself to get my hopes up, but let's get right into it. The first card, Guard Dragon LP. So why do I think this card's not going to actually get banned? Because it deserves to get banned, but it's been at 3 forever. The other Guard Dragons have been hit, but for some reason, LP was always the best one. LP was the one that gave the Dragon deck any form of interaction that they wanted out of their deck. If they wanted to rip the opponent's hand, they can do that. If they wanted to search a tidying, they can do that. If they wanted to get Tracer out of deck to summon their Savage Dragon, they can do that. So Guard Dragon LP has been a problem for so long. It's a Link 1. Link 1s have been a problem forever now, and there's been other Link 1s that have been touched, and I just don't understand why Guard Dragon LP for I believe 2.5 years now, has just stayed in the game. It does not make sense to me because it does exactly what you would think Konami does not like. It is so generic, so easy to make, and summons cards from deck. And there's so many cards that are banned that are like this. But for some reason, I like to believe that there is somebody, or Konami just likes promoting the dragon archetype, the whole entire typing. I believe it is the most popular archetype and typing in the game, and I think that is the reason why they always keep dragons so strong. The hits in the past for the dragon decks weren't even the dragon cards, or they were just very weak cards. Like they would hit Eclipse Wyvern, which did nothing. They would hit Colossus, which destroyed the Thunder deck, but didn't actually do anything to the dragon deck. So I don't know. They would hit baby dragons and then put those to one and then drop Chaos Space, which made the baby dragons the same amount of copies, but the Chaos Space was just a better card. So I think LP is probably not going to get hit, but like I said, I would love to be wrong with most of these cards, because most of these cards, I want this card to be hit for sure. So let's get on with the next one, but that's my opinion on Guard Dragon LP. The second card, El Shaddoll Winda. I think I had this card on my list when I wanted invoked hits. And a lot of people are recently have been comparing Winda to VFD. If you guys don't remember what VFD is, VFD just would activate on standby phase or main phase whenever they wanted to, and it would negate everything for the whole turn. The only thing that would be able to interact against a VFD was usually just back row cards, spells and traps. So it was very annoying, very hard to play around VFD. And Winda is very hard to play around, especially for a combo deck that can't main deck so many outs, and the Winda just comes from a Nadir Servant or a Schism, which is very annoying. Unlike VFD, where maybe hand traps can stop the combo leading to the VFD, Winda is a little bit different, where if they just open a poly with some Shaddolls, yeah, they have a Winda, and you probably don't have an out if you're playing a specific type of deck like Dragon Link. Like, Dragon Link would have to main deck things like Dark Ruler or Droplets, but my argument would have to be Winda is one of the old school archetypes as well. A lot of this is going to be this argument. It's one of the old school archetypes that this game was founded on. One of the first very strong archetypes. And I think there's other hits that they would do before Winda. And I also don't like the comparison that VFD is the same thing as Winda. I think VFD was way more oppressive. I think there's way more outs to Winda. I think there's so many different things that you can actually potentially main deck. Even things like Cosmic Cyclone can stop a Winda from happening. A Cosmic Cyclone was never preventing a VFD from dropping. So that's the difference. I don't think Winda needs to go to 0. I think there's outs in the form of spells and traps and spells that just negate monster effects. And it's only 2200, unlike VFD. And I think a lot of Shaddoll players would be really upset if they saw Winda go. I know it's one of their win conditions. I know this card's very cancerous, but for those reasons alone, and I just didn't like the comparison of VFD. I did have this on my list as one of the cards that they could potentially hit, but I would put Nadir's before this card. I would even throw things like App Clone, I believe, before this. But even then, like, those are so they don't need hits like that. I think it would really cripple the deck. I know a lot of people hate this card, but I think there's enough outs to it. Cosmic on Schism is an out to this card. And most of the time, people that are playing this deck either are playing Nadir Servant, but if they're playing a Shaddoll deck with polymerizations in their deck, the deck is inherently bricky, so I don't think it's that strong. And just in like with the recent extravagances, I don't think this deck has been performing to the level where they would actually just ban Winda outright. So I don't think this change is also going to happen. Next card, Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. So many people want this card back, and I honestly love seeing older cards like this back. This card is iconic, especially for the time that I was playing in. There was the Magician FTK. The Magician deck was so good. It would open up 3 negates. It was the first time, it was the second time I believe I saw Pendulum actually be the top deck of a format. The other time was the Performa Palette deck. But my logic behind Heavy Metal Foes Electromite not coming back is I just don't think Konami likes pendulums. That's it. Because there's no other reason why this card hasn't come back with so much new pendulum support that keeps dropping. And this pendulum card is essentially the same thing as what LP does. Yes, you can get a draw, but essentially what you're doing is getting a pendulum card out of your deck. The same thing LP does. This is a link 2, LP is a link 1. I genuinely think they just like dragons. If for some reason somebody in the staff chooses that, oh, this is the year for pendulums, I think this card can come back. They would probably have to hit some cards for an FTK, because I'm sure that there are still FTKs around involving Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, but I don't think that's the bigger issue. I think the issue is they just don't want this card coming back. I've heard that one of the reasons was it also makes a lot of pendulum decks play the same way and search the same cards because Electromite was so generic, but I didn't even like that argument because LP is doing the same thing. So my only logic has to be this: they just don't want to promote new this pendulum card. They just want to promote very archetypal specific pendulum cards. They want to keep everything separate, because I know that they still drop pendulum cards. It's just been so long since we've seen pendulums actually do anything. So I don't think this change is going to happen. If it happens, I would be so happy, and I know that there's a lot of pendulum players that have been waiting for this card to come back. If this card doesn't come back, I think there are other cards that definitely need to come back. It does not make sense to me why there's so many pendulum cards on the ban list. Like, just bring so many of them back. If you're not going to bring Electromite back, give them some other toys to play around with, because this archetype is slowly dying. This whole entire pendulum mechanic, which is supposed to be one of the most iconic mechanics in the game. They literally had a show revolving around how crazy pendulum summoning was. It was literally soul charge every turn. So I don't know. I don't want to see it die, but I don't think this change is happening. But I'm welcome to be wrong for sure. And then the last 2 cards. The first one is going to be Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage. So one of my favorite formats was the format with the Thunder Dragon, Salomon Great, Striker, and Orcus. And a lot of people are speculating that Engage can come back to 1. The only way Engage actually comes back to 1 is there has to be other preemptive hits to the other cards around it. Like, I think Kagari probably has to get hit, and then Hornet Drones probably has to get banned or something of that sort. But there's no way that Engage just comes back with all the cards at that all the cards are still legal with, because I think the Engage would be just played in other decks, just like in the past. Engage was not. If Engage comes back to 1, I will gladly throw Engage, Hornet Drones, and Widow Anchors into other decks. I think it's so strong. It was so splashable. The format where the Striker deck mixed with the Orcus, that was one of the strongest control decks I've ever seen. And I just don't see Engage coming back. Engage, draw 1, add 1 was the craziest thing. And unless there are real preemptive hits, I would rather, for the Sky Striker players, see multi-roll come back. Bring multi-roll back to 2 or 3 if you want Sky Strikers to be good, or like have some kind of niche, because right now Sky Strikers just feel like a Go Second, Mystic Mine, or I Lose. They don't really have something that is like very special to them, nothing very niche to them. And I know Engage was one of the cards, but the other card was multi-roll. The fact that multi-roll made everything not be able to interact with, it was really cool. It was different for the Striker deck. I think multi-roll, setting everything back, was a cool concept for the Striker deck. And if Engage isn't there and multi-roll is there, it just gives the Striker deck more grind, a way to actually go first and set up multiple back row. I don't think Engage is going to be changed at all. I definitely don't think so, but bring back multi-roll if you're going to give this deck support. I don't know if they will. Most of the time, unless you see Striker support coming in the future, they're not going to want Engage back. And then the last card, my favorite card, and Orcus Harper. If you guys know me, Orcus is one of my favorite decks. Love this deck so much, and that's why I know so many people are saying Harper can come back. I think this is a change that definitely cannot happen unless you also see the same thing with Engage, preemptive hits. Like, there's no way Harper is coming back unless it was tied around the format where Girsu was actually just dropping and then the PK card got unbanned. If it wasn't around that time, they don't care anymore. They want this card banned. They think that Girsu is enough, which does suck because yeah, the Harper was literally the best card one of the best cards I've ever played with in any of my decks. It literally summons anything out of your deck, but like I said, they don't like things like that. They don't, even for the archetypes themselves, they don't like how Harper summoned any dark monster, and it was very generic. This Harper was the reason why Orcus could be splashed into other decks, and for some reason, I guess they don't like that. I think Harper would actually, if Harper even came back to one, mark my words, I think it would be one of the top tier decks for sure. Definitely a contender, and I don't think they want to see that with an old deck unless they have product to push around it. So those are the 5 cards that I think, like, these are changes that I don't think are going to happen. Obviously, I'm welcome to be wrong, but let me know what you guys think. Or is there a chance that Engage or Harper comes back? Because I think these are nice wish lists, but let's talk about how Konami likes to act as a business. So like, comment, subscribe, and I definitely want to hear your guys' opinion on all these. Is Harper coming back too crazy? I think it is, but I would love it too. Peace, guys.